Hello and welcome back to another One Piece video. So today I have Shanks for you. We finally got the starter deck 23s and all the way up to 28 updated in the sim. So I wanted to just go through each one of these decks, starting with Shanks since he is starter deck 23, and showing you guys what I think is going to be the next iteration of Shanks, because I tried the control build and it seems that it's a little too slow, considering the meta is just filled with purple and them being able to ramp so much. It's really hard to justify running the control build like with Rayleigh and the 10 drop KO Shanks. And so I went more towards an aggressive build. Obviously you see the 4 Sanjis, the 4 Luffys, and then obviously 4 of the new Shanks, or the SR Shanks, just because this card is really good against purple. As soon as they ramp and drop a big body, you can then play this for 6 Dawn, and it helps you regain tempo on board that way. And if you haven't noticed, instead of running Rayleighs, I decided to run Dragon instead, just because Dragon will help you pressure them, pressure their life, versus just Rayleigh stopping their onslaught on attacking you. And so I like that Dragon is able to help you maintain that pressure. And then also with the 10 drop Shanks, I might actually drop this Shanks and play Goldie Roger instead, just because with the amount of aggression we have early game and especially late game, you kind of want to drop this Shanks to make sure that you don't die. I think that in place of this Shanks, Goldie Roger might be a little better just to help you close out games that you're able to bring your opponent down to 0 life. So enough of this deck. This is just the first iteration, but it does feel pretty good. It's definitely not as strong as some of the other top decks still, even with the starter deck buffs. But yeah, let's just hop over to some gameplay to see how this thing runs. So first game I got for you, we're going to be going up against green, yellow Yamato. And obviously she's not like a meta deck or anything, but she is getting really popular, especially with the new starter decks coming out. It's really tough to call which one of these decks are going to rise up on top. Like for example, I think like Buggy surprisingly is very strong right now. He already has like a couple of tops, and it's just really unexpected because not a lot of people believed in Buggy, especially after the starter deck cards were announced. And so yeah, first couple turns were pretty standard. I decided to use Divine Departure when he swung an 8 there, just because we had extra cards to work with, like an extra Divine Departure, and it's going to be really rare that we're going to leave up 1 Dawn consecutive turns. But I decided to save the Lucky Roo here just in case he has like another body that the Lucky Roo can help us take care of. And I decided not to swing in here just because he did put down the Hiyori, and so I didn't want to get punished by a Kiku Nojo for free there. And so I just decided to pass, forcing him to deal with our board and pressure our life. And especially with Lucky Roo still standing, it's going to be really hard for him to deal with our life. Super hard here. So he's able to pop the Lucky Roo, and then I decide to KO the Yamato just because with the leader ability, he's actually able to pump up that Yamato to a 5k swing. I just didn't want to take like an extra swing if we didn't have to here. And so I finally decided to start swinging in, just because now we are on curve to play the Beckman, so that since he triggered the Kiku Nojo, we're able to just trash without granting him an extra life there. So obviously just going to let the Sanji go. And then the 8k swing, I believe, yeah, I decided to counter out of that one just because the Yeah, I was expecting to get rushed in, but I think he didn't want to turn his body sideways, so that I can just counterattack and clear his board that way. But I think I decided to just drop the 9-drop Shanks here. I could have definitely dropped down the dragon and swung in with 7 and 9, but I thought that pumping our leader up to 7 and then also being able to leave up 1 Dawn is really, really strong. Versus if I put down dragon, I would only have 2 Dawn to work with. And yeah, I would only be able to use one of the events anyways. And so yeah, this way, as long as we don't die this turn, we should be able to close out the game in the following turns, especially with dragon in hand. So he drops down the Denjiro here. And then swinging in 9 to the Beckman. I think I just let him go here. I don't have enough counter. Yeah, definitely just let him go here. And then him dropping the Momonosuke there does make it a little difficult for us to push for lethal. And so I decided to just go in for board, seeing if he gives us the blocker here. And he doesn't, and so I think it's the safer play just to pump our leader up to 7 again, and then forcing him to have the power to rush through our 3 life. Because even though he was able to heal, we're put in the same spot where now we're able to develop another Shanks, and then it's really up to him to try to clear our board. Yeah, so I think he went with the same tactic to not turn his board sideways, just because if he does, essentially we just win the game off of that. I think I just decided to poke in here with only 3 cards left in hand. One of them probably being a Hody. We should be able to clear the match here. But I decided to swing in 10-10 just because if I drop down the dragon and he hits like a beige or something, we would just automatically lose the game there. And so it is an inefficient swing. It was inefficient to swing like 10-10, 9-9, but I was just trying to play around that trigger. I know he could have triggered into our leader, right, if he took that last 10k swing, but then I could have just dropped the Shanks instead of the dragon to play defensively at that point. So all right, so next game I got for you, it's going to be the Shanks Mirror. Obviously with this new starter deck, you're going to be seeing a lot of Shanks come back out and trying new builds for him. And yeah, this really shows why I like this build so much, just because when you're going up against Shanks, more likely than not, they're going to take your second away. And I think that the Straw Hat package is really, really good at going first. And yeah, we're able to just keep on pressuring him every single turn here. So I start off with a 6 with the Sanji. Believe I just eat his leader ability and a 1k. Or I actually hit the 2k, which is super nice. So him giving that information, I'm just going to be swinging multiple 6s here. And then him being able to pop my Luffy is totally fine. And then swinging in another 6, being able to pressure our life there. And then on his 6th Dawn turn, he's probably going to play something like another Lucky Roo, a Rayleigh. Sometimes they play like Marco. And especially with that building snake up, he could have popped anything that I put down last turn. So yeah, swinging in 5 at lead, obviously, is just going to eat a leader ability here. No reason to try to counter out of that one. And then at this point, I believe I just play down the Sanji, if I'm not I actually decided to put down the Lucky Roo. I'm not too sure. Yeah, looking back, probably best to play down the Sanji just because he doesn't really have a big threat on board. But I think my reasoning for putting down the Lucky Roo was he would be able to KO like the Hongo or Building Snake for us. But yeah, either way, we were punished by the Beckman anyways. And then here I'm just going to be swinging in 6 at lead. So Divine Departure is super nice just because of its flexibility, and also in Shanks it's searchable through your Uther, and that's why I like it so much there. So here he either swings in 9-9, yeah, so 9-9 gets met with the Red Hawk. I'm able to get rid of his Hongo. And then obviously just going to be taking the second 9 there. So I contemplated swinging in 6 at lead first, but if he actually took that, I would be giving him a chance to get more counter for his dragon. And so I decided against it because he definitely could have just played around it. And he had the counter for it anyways, so that's totally fine. And then the 5 does connect, so didn't want to give him the opportunity to get more counter if he didn't have the counter in hand already. And then yeah, if he pops his Building Snake here, I'm totally fine with it just because we have another Shanks ready, and we should be able to out pressure him here. So him dropping that Uta does feel really good. It tells us that he doesn't have a 10 drop Shanks of his own. And he is able to find the starter deck Shanks here. So at this point, him being pumped up to 7, I think he kind of just pressures life, right? There's no point in swinging into the Shanks. And then, yep, probably just take that one and then counter out of the 8k swing. Just giving him a 2 and a 1 here. And so I can't remember if I popped down the Shanks or the 10 drop Shanks. But I imagine the 9 drop Shanks is the better choice here just because he only costs 6 Dawn. But first I just poke in to see if he has another answer for the 12k swing here. He already gave us 2 2ks last turn, so it was really unlikely that he had another one there. And then since he gave that up, I might actually just drop down the Shanks. Yeah, just to put him to 1 here. I think if he didn't, if he was able to counter out, the 9 drop Shanks would have been better to make sure that we don't die next turn. But since that dragon's off the board, we obviously don't really feel pressured anymore. And next turn we should be able to push for lethal. Yeah, so I think on his 10 down turn, especially with that Building Snake up, he would need a KO Shanks, but even at that point, it would be a little too slow. Like I was saying before, like at least these Rush Shanks, they are slow, obviously, compared to purple decks, but being able to get value right away is super nice, like being able to pressure their life right away. So he's able to develop a Lucky Roo here, which is totally fine. And then swinging in 5 at lead, probably just giving him the leader ability. And then even if he... So I don't like this play from him here. I think that 5 Dawn could have been attached to his leader and the 9-drop Shanks there, if he really wanted to pressure our life. But either way, we were going for lethal anyways this turn, so I start off with a 12k at lead here, and then another 12k at lead. And then if he blocks here, obviously I just go 15 at lead, and that should do it. I was kind of scared because he didn't use his leader ability yet, and he also has 1 Dawn up for the Divine Departure, so that's 4k right there. But chances are he could have been bluffing anyways, and so I make the safe play. I just swing in 14, because if he had the Divine Departure and was able to counter out of it, I wanted to make sure that, you know, no matter what, we weren't gonna die next turn anyway. So yeah, we were able to win this matchup here. And as you can see, like, his hand is filled up with Rayleighs. There's just like not really a good time to play it when your opponent has such big bodies on board. So let's just hop over to the next game here. Okay, so last game I got for you is going to be against Red Zoro. And Red Zoro obviously is getting really popular again, considering he just topped the CS in the Eastern format. And so it's really important to know how to play around this deck. So if you noticed in my first turn, I didn't swing into him just because he had 1 Dawn up. And we really lose this matchup if he's able to swarm his board super quickly. And I just didn't want to help that, right? And so if he has 1 Dawn up, obviously I'm just not gonna swing. But yeah, playing down the Hongo as well, just because Zoro is really good at putting down a lot of small bodies. And so we just need a body on board to help us deal with these smaller bodies. And so I'm trying to figure out how to swing here so that we can guarantee that everything gets wiped off the board. And I just swing 3k over everything, and that is enough to get them off the board for us here. So now Zoro only has 1 body on board. We have 2. Great. And he swings in 6 at lead here. I actually decided to take this first one here just because I didn't want to waste counter and then him just crack into our Luffy, and then we lose all of the board presence there. And then him swinging in, I think, 8 at lead here. I think I decided to take this one as well, just because him only being able to put down 2 bodies that turn, we should be able to clear out, especially since we have Beckman coming up and we have the Rush Luffy still on board here. And so I force him to give us 2 cards, and yeah, he decides that the Zoro is much more important to keep on board, which I agree. You know, he obviously needs board presence in order to close out this match. And so he's putting 1 Dawn on his Zoro, being able to pump him up to 7. And then obviously, since I could counter out of 1 card there, I'm just gonna give him all this counter. And that's why I didn't want to counter last turn, because this turn we're able to survive the onslaught here and protect our board. I think this is the most important thing of the matchup. If you're able to maintain board presence, maintain tempo, you should just be able to win out, because your cards just naturally outvalue his cards in the later stages of the game. So start off with a 7k swing to his Kid Killer. Because he only has 3 cards in hand, oh, I swing into the Zoro here. Not a misplay. I think I didn't want him to counter or like consider countering, since I had the Beckman, but since he played a standing body, I decided to remove that instead. And then yeah, if he countered out of the Luffy swing into the Kid Killer there, he would have no cards in hand and I would just be able to poke 5 there. So yeah, I think this is the most important part of this matchup, is being able to identify how to close out the match here. And we really close out the match by just clearing his body, making sure that we have enough for this red rock, and then luckily we drew Lucky Roo as well. I honestly don't think we needed Lucky Roo to survive next turn, but him being there just kind of guarantees that we don't die next turn. And then honestly, this game's kind of like a mini PSA for you all. Red Hawk is still a card, and I think it's really important that you play around it. If your Shanks opponent has 2 Dawn up, there's a really good chance that, you know, they're still playing Red Hawk. So be sure to play around it, because this card is really good into aggro. So if you are a Zoro player yourself, or if you're what's it called, if you play stuff like Reiju that plays a lot of 5k bodies, make sure that you attach your Dawn before swinging, especially if you're trying to push for lethal. So here I'm able to punish him here by countering out of his swing and removing a body off board. So now with only 1 more swing on board, there's just no way for him to close out the match here. And then even if he dropped like Kid and Killer or something, we should be able to counter out of one of the swings here, since we didn't use leader ability yet. So he swings in 6 at lead. Give him a 2k here. And then, yeah, we should be able to just close out the match here. So I start off with a 7. I think that's always going to connect. I didn't want to drop down the Shanks and just throw the game here. And so I just give him an 8k swing, and if this connects, we should be able to close out the match here with the 10-10. So his only out would have been to have exactly 3 2ks. And since he already used a couple of 2ks in this game and then giving us a couple of 2ks as we were trading into his bodies, it's just really unlikely that he drew all 3 out of his life there. So yeah, that's pretty much it. Shanks is still pretty strong. I wouldn't say he's top tier or anything, but definitely at like a locals level, he will be able to compete. So just be careful for Shanks. And I think if you're planning on playing him, the aggro approach is definitely, in my opinion, the way to go right now, just because like blue purple gets punished by aggro decks, and then if you're going up against stuff like purple black Luffy, grape Luffy, and purple Luffy, they like going first, especially against like slower decks. And so if you're able to take that away from them and pressure them early on, you're going to see a lot of success in those matchups. So that's pretty much it for the video. I hope you guys enjoyed, and I'll see you guys in the next one.